So right now we are recording. Thank you everyone for joining for another session webinar on Thursday. These materials are all for real estate agent and your clients. It would help you to understand what's happening with real estate market, real estate strategies, conducting your business as a realtor, and investment is one of the topic we talk very often. And today I invited my dear friend that I know him for many years, Matthew Frederick. He is one of the trusted real estate investor that I count, and I know he's very knowledgeable. He has his own group, his own tribe, his own team, and I invited him to join us and answer some of the questions that we have. So let me just finish the sharing the screen here. Stop sharing. Okay. So Matthew, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so welcome to this session. It's my honor to have you here, and we might have some questions as the real estate agents joining this webinar. But go ahead, tell us who you are, how long you've been in business, what do you do?
Well, I started my investing back in 1984. Bought my first house in Hamilton. I was probably 19 years old. And today it would be called house hacking, where I bought the house, I rented the basement, I shared the kitchen. The basement had a separate entrance, but a common door to the kitchen. I lived on the main floor and the second floor. And I was 19, and it was great. And I didn't plan to buy any more properties, but my brother came to me about 4 years later, 4.5 years later. By that time, I was a teacher. He was a cop, and he says to me, I want you to invest. And I'm like, no, I'm not investing. I bought my first house. That's all I need. And he goes, I'm your older brother. I have a gun. Follow me. So I figured, okay. So we started buying, old Victorian homes. We did the buy, fix, and rent, buy, fix, and sell. Did that for a lot of years. Ended up having about like 32 properties over a decade later. And I thought, I have 32 properties. I should be rich. But I found myself extremely tired because having lots of tenants just meant that teaching all day, I come home, phone call, tree fell on a fence, or a fridge went. So I found it was a lot of stress. Now, if I just kept those properties for 15 years, sure, each would be worth tremendous amounts of money. But I sold off half of them over a period of time. I started buying buildings. So by 2000, I started buying 12, 24, 34 unit buildings. And it just allowed there to be a superintendent, and they would manage the properties more, and I managed them less. And then by 2007, I got into construction building. And to date, I've built about 5 small subdivisions, about 35 houses, each subdivision, and a large one, about 113 houses. And I've built a number of, 4 50-unit low-rise condo buildings. And I've been investing in self-storage since 2000. I've invested in the US and across Canada. Now, that sounds incredible, but I've made my share of mistakes, had bad partners, made wrong choices, flying too close to the sun, found myself looking up at the sun from my back on the ground. So I've been through all of that. And I've been through about 7 market adjustments since 1984 to now. So and today, just really quickly, I do help and coach people, as well as I'm building still. And that's just a quick summation of who I am and what I've done in the past.
Perfect. So I was talking about the potential of real estate investment. Is it still a profitable way of making money? And I want you to tell us how someone can start, or how someone can turn it to a profitable business.
Well, real estate's been around for a long time, since the pyramids. And I bought my first house, as I said, in 1984, and interest rates were 13.7% when I bought my first house. So today rates are about 6.5%. Now, it's different in the sense that my first property was about $79,000, $80,000, and a grown person, an adult, would make about $30,000 a year. So if you took your full salary of $30,000 a year in 1984, it's about 2 years, 2.5 years. Today, if you're making $65,000 a year, the average house is about $750,000. That's 11 times. So even though interest rates are lower than they were back then, the buying power has gone down. Secondly, back when I started from 84 to 94, even to 99, there was pretty much not a lot of investors in the market. In fact, in the 80s, if you had more than one property, you were looked at as greedy. you have a house and a second house and a third house, you're greedy. Because back in the day, real estate investors would be late on TV at night showing cars and women and diamonds and jewelry. And it was like, here's my yacht. So the stigma was different. Today, the stigma is if you try to buy a second property or third property, you're sort of trying to just help yourself to get to retirement sooner. So the stigma has changed. It's a lot easier today. Interest rates are lower, believe it or not. But I find that people seem to flood the market like a herd. So if I say to you, Burr is working, buy, renovate, refinance, rent, and so on and so forth, everybody goes there. And the sheer number of people who go there tend to damage the market. If I say to you, let's do X strategy, everybody goes there and sort of damages the market itself. It's like 100,000, let's say, cattle show up on your front lawn. It's going to affect the market, right? So yes, you can make money, but you have to be ahead of the herd, not in the middle of the herd or behind the herd. I have people who are just looking to invest today. Well, how about the last 9 years? Should have started 9 years ago, but the best time to start is today.
Good. Now, as you know, the incomes are not growing in proportion to the price of properties. Actually, life is getting tighter. Let's say day one, I want to start investing in real estate. I have a firm belief that it is the way to go. So, what is the first thing I should do, or first few things I should do?
Well, you have to adjust your mindset. Are you trying to get rich quick tomorrow, or are you trying to buy something where in about 10 years, 15 years, it's going to double and triple in value? So because I've been through 7 market crashes, where we are right now is more of a long-term play. You buy something and in about 5 or 10 years, the value goes up. You're hoping to at least break even today on that property. And then you have to ask yourself, where do I get the money from? So therefore, you have to, today, in most cases, I've found that I've had to partner with people, joint venture with people, which means I can't just buy a house anymore. It's not big enough a pie to eat. I have to look at 6, 12, 18 units in order to be able to have 2 or 3 people come on in and share that pie. So number one, it's the attitude. Am I going to make money tomorrow for tomorrow? That's not as successful, although it is successful for some people. People who are extremely well trained. But the attitude is 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, try to break even, get something bigger so that more people can buy it together with you. And in the end, we'll end up sharing the profit at the back end.
Great. So mindset is number one. And then
Something larger.
Okay. So we believe in partnership with someone else, going for a long-term deal.
Now, keep in mind that here's an answer. It's a bit longer, but you also have to adjust the partner. So if right now you're a beginner, don't have a lot of money, and you're looking for other beginners who don't have a lot of money, well, 2 or 3 people who can't swim, if you jump into the water, just because you have 6 arms and legs doesn't mean you're going to float, right? So what you might end up doing is saying, where am I today? I have time. I have maybe some expertise, and maybe I have no money. I need to find somebody who has money, but no time and no expertise. So your time, your expertise, and no money matching to their money, no time, expertise. So you build an avatar. You say, okay, out there in this world, there might be a female who's between 45 and 55. Maybe her mom has early onset dementia, so she's dealing with that battle. Maybe her young adult just got divorced and moved back home, dealing with that side. Maybe her relationship isn't there anymore. She's going through a divorce, dealing with that side. Upper management, busy at work. At the same time, she's getting a little bit older. And at the same time, her best friend with a perfect life just had breast cancer and died. So this person's world is topsy-turvy spinning. And what they're looking for is stability, a rock. And you can help them by finding that property. Could be a 3-unit property, 2-unit property. And they buy it because they're upper management. They probably have a house they bought for $300,000 today worth about $2 million. So they have equity. They're not looking for cash flow. They want someone to help them buy a property, buy it the right way, someone they can trust, and then hold on to it for 10 or 15 years so that when they're ready at 65 years old, that property would be there for them. The good news is if there's any cash flow, it goes to you because they don't need the cash flow. At the same time, they can split the back end 60-40, they're 60, you're 40. So I'm saying you have to see where you're weak, find somebody who's strong, not necessarily somebody at your same level, and then solve that person's need because they're fighting multiple battles and they don't have the time to create a rock, and you can create that rock for them. That's the foundation of a joint venture, just using one type of an avatar. And that person that I just described exists many times over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. I appreciate that. We're going to go back to that joint venture partnership. But before that, I know there's a lot of expert real estate investors in the US that are actively promoting zero down, buy a house with zero down. And I've done that here in Canada as well. You want to elaborate on that? How can we do that in Canada, or it's only in US?
Okay, when it comes to zero down, you're just asking yourself to get punched in the face. Punch me 5 times in the face. That's what zero down means. Because if you put no money into it, then you're maxed out on bank money. You're maxed out on maybe board money, maybe private money. You don't have any room to repair or fix anything. And then you may end up going into a lower income neighborhood because you're buying a cheaper house with horrible tenants. So what are you really saying? Punch me in the face 5 times. So what you should do is, again, find somebody who has access to money, but not the time, and see if you can buy in an area that's not low income, not middle income, just below middle, and try to help have that person with a good solid job come on with you and see if they can get a good mortgage and guess what? Put 20% down. Because if you put 20% down, it creates some sort of a leverage. And if that person has access to money, a line of credit, then they can help do some repairs. You can be in a better neighborhood. So I've done no money down, but every single time I've said to myself, was it really worth it? I mean, at one time I had 32 properties. 3 of them were killing me. It's like having 4 kids and having 1 bad kid. Now, we all love our kids, but one child can challenge you more than the other 3. And that's what defines you as a parent. Like, can you survive that child? So my 3 houses were killing me. My other, 28 or whatever, were not. And those were in a better area. And I put money down on those. If I didn't have the money, I had somebody help me with that money, and I shared. But the ones that I can afford, no money down, didn't share, trouble. So that's my philosophy of no money down. Hey, punch me in the face 10 times.
So I think the healthiest way of thinking of zero down is coming to joint venturing with someone who has money and you have the expertise. Just put them together and you have a journey to walk together in real estate investment. And I know you are running your own programs. You're training some individuals who's very interested to learn more about real estate investment, and you're going to cover this subject. But I have to ask you, how do you find a joint venture?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. So today, if you're looking for something a bit larger, so maybe a 12-unit building, 6, 12, 18-unit building, why larger? Because it has its own superintendent. Then what you do, and by the way, even if it's a 3-unit or if it's a house, what I do is I just contact the property owner and I say to them, hey, I like your property. I want to buy it. And they'll say to me, well, it's not for sale. And I'll say to them, well, do you have anything else? They might say no. And I say to them, if you're not selling, are you buying? If they say they're still buying, I'm saying, what's holding you back? And they might say they're just looking for a good property. That's one thing. If they say what's holding them back is they don't have the time, the effort, the energy right now, I said to them, did you lose the bug of investing? And they say, no, I just don't have the time. Then I said, I do. And then I say, let's have a coffee. Maybe we can do something where obviously you understand real estate, you own real estate, you make money with real estate, but you can't upscale or advance because you don't have the time, money, and effort. Let's talk about it. Maybe we can do something together. So to answer your question, I go to people who own property. I ask them if they want to sell it. And when they say no, I say to them, "You're still growing?" If they say yes, or if they say they're not still growing, I say, "How come?" And they tell me, could be because they're busy. And then I look for those people. That's one source of where I get probably 60% of my JV partners. And you know why? Because they understand real estate. And most of them who own buildings, they bought the buildings in 2000 for about 800,000. And today they're worth about, I don't know, 5 million. Tons of equity, but if they're between 65 and 75 years, they still want to invest. They have the bug, but they don't have the strength. So I tell them, hey, let me be your Viagra. I'm going to be your energy. Let me go out there and let me find all the properties, but use your money. So that's why I find 60% of my JV partners, owners. Because if you have to convince a doctor, that's a bit harder to convince a doctor or a pilot than a guy or a gal who's owned buildings for a period of time. So that's what I do. Hey, I want to buy your building, not for sale. By the way, if it is for sale, then we have a conversation. If it's for sale, if it's not for sale, but they are still looking, I might get a property that they're looking for under contract from myself and wholesale it to them. Or I might joint venture with them. So generally I give these long answers, but generally that's where I go to find JV partners.
Great, amazing. So good question is, where would you find the best investment?
Well, it all depends on what you're investing in. So it depends on what strategy you're applying. So a lot of people are today looking at, let's say, I would say probably 3 to 6 unit property, even 5 to 6 unit, or maybe even a 3 unit with the option to put 1 more unit to it. And so therefore, you have to understand when those were built, where those were built. If I'm looking for an apartment building, for instance, they were built about 30 to 40 years ago. So they will be within the core of the city or just outside of the core. They're not going to be by Walmart. Okay, but keep in mind that when it comes to multiple family buildings, like 3, 4, 5, 6 units, they're not where the Walmarts are, but they're in between the Walmart and the city. And I would look within that range because most Walmarts build themselves in the outskirts and they compete with the core of the city. So from the core where the apartment buildings have finished towards the realm of the Walmart, in that area, I would go looking for, let's say, 3 or 4 unit properties, maybe 6 unit properties, because they generate enough money for you to at least make some kind of a cash flow and keep you afloat if you're looking for the rental world.
Great. And how do you, I'm not sure if you've done before or not, what do you think about the house conversion, like you buying a detached homes and cut it in 4 units and start renting it or flip it? What do you think?
Yeah, so I've done a number of conversions where I've bought 2 units and added an extra unit. Today, you can obviously add a additional dwelling unit on the back if the city permits it, and if it's you have the proper spacing for it, proper setbacks. I think if somebody were to buy a house today, they would have to have a basement apartment and literally an additional dwelling unit in the backyard to make some money. But keep in mind that some people are ridiculous when it comes to these things. They want to sell a little small additional dwelling unit for about $350,000, which is just crazy. Those should be more in the, and obviously they have their reasons, so I shouldn't say it's crazy. But, I would look more in the $200,000 and below range if you're adding an additional dwelling unit to the back of your property. But the third unit can make something work for you. And it gives you an option as well for the future. And then if you're buying downtown Toronto, it's not going to work. Seems like I used to buy in Barrie. Now I buy in Orillia. I used to buy in Kingston. Now I buy in Belleville. I used to buy in Kitchener. Now I buy in Cambridge. I used to buy in Hamilton. Now I buy in Brantford. I still buy in London. Welland was probably the best place to buy for the city that works with you the best. but Welland has been saturated for a period of time. And then I've been looking at some of these little outskirt towns here and there that no one's ever heard of, just to see if something could work as well.
Mhm. Okay. Any challenges with tenants?
For me, um, I have had people who are my associates who've had lots of challenges with tenants. I didn't have that many challenges with tenants because I bought most of my buildings in 2001 to about 2018. And I actually implement programs for my tenants to help them to be financially, let's say, sound if they need that, because each of my properties, they access a website. I give them hints and clues, and we actually even run a little workshop to help them to be sound. So I haven't ran into a whole lot of problems, but yes, I've had friends and family who's had problems. Took 9 months to clear out a house, just to get the landlord board. And then when we got the landlord board, the person said, "Hey, you know what? Here's a problem, an issue that did not exist." And the adjudicator said, "Okay, let them start paying $300 a month towards the 15,000 they owe, and we'll give them a chance." And the person still didn't pay. And about 4 months later, finally, almost over a year, the person got their walking papers, and the place was destroyed. So I've heard that story a multitude of times, many, many times. So it's unfortunate. I've had that issue over a number of years, but the landlord board in my day was 3 months maximum to get to a trial, to the tribunal. And you know what? The adjudicator took it seriously. It's changed now in the favor of the tenant.
All right. In your conversation, you're bringing up a lot of the cities that are on the west side of GTA. Any hesitation for buying real estate investment in Ajax, Scarborough, on the east side of GTA?
Actually, I like Scarborough. I do like Ajax. I do like Pickering. So it's to know what strategy you're applying and where in that area you're actually working. So a lot of people do something called wholesaling, and even realtors could be involved in that as long as all parties are duly notified, and all the paperwork is correct. But Scarborough, I think, is still has affordability in certain areas. And you know what? Surprisingly, in the last year, some of my students have done a number of what's called a tax sale. And tax sales were not really popular, but they're becoming more popular again. And the tax sales, when a property doesn't pay their taxes, a house, for about 3 years, they could go up for tax auction. The auction is always difficult because there's always a ding dong who's going to bid too high. And these are private bids. We don't know what they're going to bid. But what we do is we approach the house 30 days before the auction, and we make them an offer. We'll pay off your back taxes. You'll quit claim your deed into our control. The goal is to renovate the house and sell it and split the profit. We'll take care of the hotel for you, the motel, monthly motel for 3 months. We'll take care of the truck to move your stuff. We'll store your stuff. We'll pay your lawyer. We'll pay for everything. And once we sell the property, we recover all of our money, and then we split the profit. So it's a bit of a longer process, trying to contact the homeowner before auction, only because it's hard to get something at auction at a good price. I hadn't seen that strategy. I hadn't used that strategy since the 90s, but because people have come off of COVID and perhaps they don't have cash the way they used to. I mean, perhaps people are not paying their property taxes, and cities are moving on that. There's a tax sale in a city somewhere in Ontario every single month. I think Toronto's got like 6 days left on Scarborough. Has about 4 days left on one of its tax sales.
I know tax sales is very common and it's very it's everywhere in the US. They have auctions. You sit down and offer the price. I didn't know we have it that much in Ontario.
Every single month, there's a city that has a tax sale going. So if you were to, for instance, punch in property tax sale Windsor, property tax sale Scarborough, you go to the city's website and you punch in current tax sale, if there's one going on, they'll list all the properties that are coming in for tax arrears. There's one we're looking at. It's got $100,000 back taxes. It's probably worth about $800,000. And if we were to bid on that, it's a silent bid. You don't know what anybody bids. But there's a day, 30 days from the time they advertise it, that they will open all envelopes. And if you win the bid, then you pretty much pay for the property at the tax rate. And by the way, there's no mortgages on these. The only issue, if there's a lien from CRA, I would stay away from that property. Because you might take over the actual lien itself. But yeah, tax sales happen all the time. Just people don't know about it.
Great. Now, looking at U.S. market in terms of stepping into real estate investment, I always have some hesitation because of the distance and not being familiar. I believe that you have to know what you do. There's a lot of money on the table. You can lose it if you don't know what you're doing. So in terms of getting into the market and being practical, what do you think about U.S. market?
So in 1999, 2000, I bought 3 properties in Florida. Then I bought a bunch of properties in Scottsdale, Arizona, in 2007, and I do some stuff in Atlanta, also in Buffalo. And I think anybody who buys in the U.S. first has to, in Canada, buy a property, but buy in a different city about 1 hour away. And then you have to set up a structure so that you can actually run that property 1 hour away from the telephone. In other words, you have a team of people who repair things. You have a team of people to do things. You have to practice working that property at a distance for at least 1 year before you decide to buy even further into a different country and in the US. Secondly, you have to do a lot of research on where you're buying. For instance, in the US, if you look at the cities like Atlanta, for instance, or even Buffalo, it's broken up by still race. So you'll have a large African-American population in a certain area, like in the inner core. Then you'll have Asians on the outer core. And then in between Asians and, I guess, you have your general purpose, your white person, I suppose I'll just say. So you have African Americans, then you have Asians, then you have white people, and then you have Spanish people on the far side. So they're still broken up, and you have to understand each of the cultures and how things actually work in order to invest, I think, in the US. It's not everybody's all mixed in together. So that's one thing you have to understand. Number 2, you have to understand the crime rate. Where is the crime rate and what is happening with crime? I tend to buy in between, at the edge of African-American populations that touch, let's say, white populations. In between any of those areas, like, it's always a great place to buy because I find I get the best tenants and I get the best value. I know it sounds very cut and dry here, but in the US, it's cut and dry. There's no in between. There's no gray. Third, people say they love the US, but when I go to my garbage can here in Ontario, I might see a raccoon. But taxes are high here and properties are expensive. And the landlord board is terrible. When I go to my property in Cape Coral, Florida, the taxes are great and the landlord board is great. And guess what? I see an alligator. So, a raccoon is a little bit different than an alligator. And when I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, hey, taxes are great, prices are great, but by my garbage can, rattlesnake. So what I'm saying is people who are just professing, let's go to the US, it's the best place to be, it's because they haven't been in the US long enough. They haven't been bitten by a rattlesnake. In other words, they haven't been bitten by the dangers that you can run into in the US market, right? So it's not all fun and games is what I'm saying. It's just a trade-off of differences. What are you willing to trade off from here to get there? And you can always get better pricing in the US and you can still make positive cash flow in the US. But if you're not set up tax-wise, well, you're going to leave 20% of your money on the table right there. And you'll get double taxed if you don't set up your company the correct way. So it's more about liability protection, insurance, which could cost a lot of money, depending on where you are, to eat away all your cash flow. Home associations could eat away all your cash flow. And taxes can eat away all your cash flow. And crime can eat away all your cash flow if it's not set up correctly. Lastly, if you're not in the right place and someone's not paying your rent, you can't just go down there and like knock, knock, knock. Hi, my name is Matthew. I'm Canadian. I noticed you didn't pay your rent. And then you hear behind the door, and then you run. So you have to know where you're buying, or else you might get shot. I don't want to sound negative, but it is, everybody in Texas, for instance, has a gun. Everyone in Arizona has a gun. I thought people used to have these bulges. Why do Americans have these bulges? No, it's a gun. You know, carry, conceal. So you have to be mindful. We're in a different world down there. I'm not against it. I'm just saying it's different.
That's fair. That's fair. Thank you for clarifications. One of the first thing, if you've never bought a real estate investment, and I remember my own story when I started some 20 years ago investing in real estate, there was no way you could convince me to step into real estate investment. There was a lot of ignorance of where I go, what to buy, what not to buy. Am I buying the right one? Can I get it rented? All those questions coming out of my ignorance. And then fear. Am I going to lose my money? What should I do? And there was one factor that pushed me towards that direction, was connect with the right people, right-minded people. That time we still have RAIN in Canada. Is an organization that get together here and there, and they were talking about real estate investment. There are a lot of people, a good role model that can push you. And I had a good role model there in RAIN that pushed me, and I was coming with pages of Excel sheet. Why this property? Why that property? What is the cost? And the individual that I was working with said, you know what? Put everything aside, just jump in. That's it. Once you jump in, you're going to realize that all of those fears and ignorance, they're gone. You're actually dealing with a real situation, and you're going to learn and you're going to know how to handle that, which I did. I jumped in there, and contrary to what I thought, it's much easier than I was thinking of. So having a mentor, someone can help you, a teacher, is crucial with real estate investment. That person can stop you from making so many of expensive wrong experiences. So I know Matthew does for many years. How long you were doing mentorship and training, Matthew?
I started mentoring probably 24 years or 25 years ago.
Okay.
You know, so like I said, I started in '84 investing, but by 1999, I started mentoring. I don't mentor a lot of people. I don't mentor like 100 people. I keep it to maybe 12 a year, 15 a year, because I do a lot of one-on-one.
Okay, so you want to tell me a little bit, tell audience a little bit of what you do and how long does it take? Where do you start? Do you accept everyone? Tell us a little bit of what you do.
Okay. Well, people always ask me why do I mentor? Well, number one, I get paid to mentor. Number two, I have a gift of teaching. Like I love teaching. At the same time, mentorship would be probably 1/10 of my income stream, because I build wealth through my self-storage, through building properties, and through, let's say, multifamily buildings. A lot of people have mentorships where you talk to somebody, I don't know, in a Zoom call one time a month for 12 months, and then maybe you get together with a whole bunch of people and you network. Those are all great, but I could never really expand or learn with that system. So therefore, instead of teaching a lot of people, I'll just pick about 12 a year, and they have to be serious people and people who have good personalities, because ultimately I'm going to spend a lot of time with that person. And we have to be very careful that we're not with people who drain us. I like to have students who, when we sit together, we don't shrink, we grow. If you're a person who has a lot of money and you want me to mentor you, but you have a personality where every time I show up, you try to drain my energy, I'm not going to mentor you. You couldn't pay me to do that. But what I do is I spend a lot of time one-on-one. So probably do about 24 sessions throughout the year, just one-on-one, 2 hours each, just teaching all the tricks of the trades and all the things that I've came across, a lot of my problems and how I solve problems. Then we go into the field, which means we go see properties together. I think I have to walk you through a property. You have to smell mold. I can't tell you what mold is. So I tend to walk through properties with them. And if they end up getting a property that they want to investigate, I'll talk to the owners with them. I'll negotiate with them. I'll analyze the property with them. I'll go see the property with them. I'll walk the inspection with them. If they want a JV partner, I help develop that JV partner with them, because it's so important to learn while you're watching somebody doing something. I can tell you how to fly a plane, but if you can watch me do it, it's a lot easier than me to try to talk you down. Okay, so you're at 40,000 feet, 30,000 feet. Let me tell you how to land. I kind of rather be there with the person. So I do enjoy the process. And that's why I don't mentor a lot of people. I mentor fewer, but I actually create amazing relationships and amazing friendships and associates that, you know, a year later, 2, 3, 4 years later, there's no like stage 2 for me. Like, we become associates. And I have a lot of people that I've mentored and a lot of friends and associates, and I love that. I don't want to talk about cost and price, but I would say it's comparable to other people, except I just spend a lot more time with people.
And what is the best way to contact you?
You can catch me at, my email is Matthew with 1 T. So mathew.f@rccsol.com. Or I have a phone number I set up for people. It's 289-440-2335. Leave a message and we can talk.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Matthew, for coming. I think this is the third webinars we have together. We had 2 with real estate investment many years ago. This is for specifically for agents and their clients as well. So it was a pleasure to have you here. Anyone has any question, by the way? I don't see anything in chat, but I open the microphone here if anyone has any question.
Well, I will say this. Right now, there are programs that the government puts together that you could use, whether it's CMHC, MLI Select, or a whole bunch of different things. Those are all good. But keep this in mind. When the government or the bank gives you something, it's more like a carrot to draw you towards them, because they have a problem. The government gives you things when they have a problem, and what they try to do is give you the carrot so you go towards it and try to solve the problem. And you can make good money with all those breaks, but it's not a strategy. Meaning, you can't just keep going from government break to government break to government break over the next 15 years, because it's almost like following a friend who has issues. And every time they have an issue, try to solve their issue. So government might have a housing issue right now. And if you go towards what they're offering to solve their problem, yeah, you'll make money, but you can't have a strategy just solving your crazy friend's issues, because they keep having issues. At the same time, your friend might be a narcissist who doesn't care about you. Sometimes the government cares about what they need, and I cannot create a strategy based only on what they need, because they'll begin to claw it back when they don't need that anymore. And if your friend has 2 personalities, because the government does change, from one government to the other, it cannot be a strategy. So I'm just saying, create a 10 to 15 year strategy based on what you need. Don't always just follow what somebody's issue is, that they're creating nice carrots for you to follow, because it's sugar, and sugar is not a strategy. Sugar is a rush. So know your strategy, know when to jump in and use government breaks, but it's not your purpose. It is just along your path. I hope that makes a little bit of sense.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No question for Matthew?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, they can email me and I'll contact them directly.
Absolutely. Or you can reach me. I have Matthew's information, and we can go from there. Thank you very much, Matthew, for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you today. And thank you, everyone, for joining, and hope to see you next week. We don't have a webinar, but we have on Monday morning role play. So more than happy to have you there on role play on Monday morning, and hope to see you soon.